Depending on which region you're from, Thomas DVDs typically have a very distinct look. Most of the US have a very aesthetically pleasing look to them, and when put next to each other, they look fantastic. The UK had some unity to its releases, most notably when it's a series of DVDs, like the complete series releases and the 90s re-releases. And the rest of the world, I can't really speak on because, well, I am from Britain. So here are the best Thomas DVD covers according to the home media lads. Okay, so these are all of 11 GWR's favourite, and you can probably see why. Now, me myself, I'm not huge on the 2000s re-releases of some releases. Like, Down the Mine and Time for Trouble just look really unfinished to me. Like, I know there's a pattern behind that bold yellow and green, but it just looks so plain and uninteresting to me. It's a cool novelty for sure, but I don't know, man. They just look so, well, 2000s to me. Now, the complete series releases, just in general, are very fascinating to look at. The original VHS releases did follow a colour scheme and just general vibe, but with Series 5 they just gave up. They used loads of different assets here. Now granted, most of them are from Series 5, which I appreciate, but they just have this random 2D art of Cranky. Like, you didn't have any other art of Cranky to use? And I haven't even mentioned the Trust Thomas image on the front. Like, it looks really cool, but why though? Something else I find really interesting about the Series 5 VHS cover is that a lot of the images used on it were actually used on the very best of Thomas and Friends. Like, we're talking all of the photos you see, bar 2, are used on the release. I wonder if that was intentional, or if they literally only had those photos to use during a certain period of time. I'm not sure. Now, I actually really appreciate the fact that the UK was still quite consistent with the complete series releases when they released on DVD, because they actually look quite similar to the VHS releases. Of course, they changed things up a bit because, well, DVDs aren't as big as VHS tapes, so they had to scale down the art, but I appreciate that they kept it somewhat consistent. Now, of course, when we're going off the UK, we have to mention the absolute GOAT release, Chasers, Racers and Runaways. And while it does scream 90s nowadays, it is still just fascinating to look at. I will say the text is interesting. I'm not a fan of the orange, I can't lie, man. And I love the fact that they just use screenshots from the episodes. That is such a UK thing to do, I guess. And you can tell because the quality of the photos is like shit, but it's okay because it looks fucking sick. I was gonna say it's messy, but it kind of isn't though. Because as you can see with the text, there's a space behind it, so it's not just all thrown together. There was some thought put into this. And also, I didn't even notice this, but Harold is actually carrying the over 100 minutes banner. I genuinely didn't even notice that. Am I being stupid? Something else I actually really appreciate and didn't notice until just now is that on the bottom it says 18 episodes of Mischief and Mishaps. Do you recognise that saying? Because it's from this advert right here.
Also available, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends Playtime and the brand new release, Chasers, Races and Runaways. 18 episodes of Mischief and Mishaps.
I genuinely didn't even notice that. That's so sick. Now, the spine of this release is what I love the most, because I've never actually seen that art before. I'm not sure if they completely, like, remade it from scratch, because where's it from? Is it from the Runaway, maybe? I'm not sure, because it looks really photoshopped, I guess. I'm not sure how to put it. And of course, while on the topic of the UK, we have to talk about spooks and surprises. Now, yes, a lot of these episodes aren't even on the release, but I don't care anymore. If a piece of art looks fantastic and is borderline accurate to what's on the release, then I don't care. Like I mentioned before, this just screams 1990s, and that's fine. I love the split border down the middle. That is just genius. It's so fantastic. Like I mentioned before, the US releases are so in unison with each other that even the sampler releases like Thomas's Train Yard Adventures have that art style. In fact, Thomas's Train Yard Adventures might just be my favourite art from the US catalogue. It's very simplistic, yes, but like the Magic Railroad art with the blue background and the really overly saturated Season 7 stock art, I love that. That is phenomenally done. Now, of course, the US didn't always have it like this. The original releases of a lot of them look very different, as you can see here with Gallant Old Engine. However though, when these were originally released, they were still in uniform with each other. Just look at Season 4 and Season 5. Except that one spine on Spills and Chills. Like, who signed off on that, you actual monster? Now, granted, yes, they aren't accurate to what's actually on the tape. Like, why Trust Thomas is on Thomas Comes to Breakfast is beyond me. But honestly, I don't really care about that. These are just so well done. Something that kind of annoys me, though, is that Edward isn't on the front of any of these releases, and yet Harold is. Like, that's just kind of annoying, man. I know we were going to get one, but it just would have been really cool if we actually, you know, officially got one. Now, the classic releases aren't the only good US poster arts. There are certain releases in the US which have some really unique arts. The main one for me is Engine Friends. The film reel with the engines on there is so just genuinely clever. It's so fantastic. And of course, you just have some really nice pieces of art like Tinsel on the tracks. That is just such a, this sounds so corny, but magical art. It's just so aesthetically pleasing and just amazing to look at. It's so great. Now, these ones were suggested as being some of the best, but for me, they're okay, I guess. I'm not a fan of the oval. It's not exactly a circle, but it's like an oval shape. I'm not a fan of that. And it just screams vanilla ice cream to me. You know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I mean. Now, this art here, despite the fact that it probably doesn't belong on a Thomas DVD, it's just so lovely to me. I loved these books as a kid. I can't remember what they're called, but I loved them, and I'm sure you did as well. But I just love the way it looks. It's so innocent, and, well, yes, it does make Thomas seem a bit more babyish than it actually is in the actual show. I mean, I don't know what episodes are on this one, but given the logo on the top left, I'm going to assume it's classic series, even though it says Modern Times at the bottom. What the fuck does that even mean? I'm not even sure if this DVD is licensed, but if it is, then fair play. When talking about some of the US releases, Oliver 11 GWR mentioned this about Daisy, and I think he is spitting complete facts here. I'm going to read out for you guys. One final mention for the US. While Thomas is generally considered a boy show, I think Daisy sticks out. Having a pink cover and a girl engine on the front is definitely not boy appealing, and thus is unique. Now, easily the most underrated country when it comes to cover art is Australia. It's a very love or hate it kind of thing, because on the surface level, these aren't good, but when you think about it, they don't really need to be all that flashy a lot of the time. Like, yes, it's just a simple image of, say, Donald and Douglas, or Thomas, or Stepney, but that's all you need. The title is Thomas and the Jet Engine, and who's on the cover? Thomas's. It's called Twin Trouble, and who's on the cover? The twins who literally caused trouble. Thomas and Stepney. Has Stepney on the cover, with a really nice blue background, I must say. Trust Thomas, with a photo from Trust Thomas, very similar to the UK. Now, on that note though, I have to say Australia isn't always good. I know this is the best Thomas DVD covers video, but need I remind you of their Truckloads of Fun cover? The UK one was bad enough. We don't talk about the Australian one. That never happened. Now, a subgenre, I guess you could call it, of Thomas DVDs that I'm impartial to, I guess, is the box sets in the UK. Some of them have art which is just amazing in my opinion. Like this 5 Exciting DVDs pack just really speaks to me. I wish there was a full image of it somewhere, but there just isn't. I bet it would look so cool. I think it's my nostalgia speaking because I grew up in this like mid 2000s, late 2000s hit era. You know what I mean? An honourable mention for the best ones, although this is kind of cheating because they're like prestige level things, I guess, are the 2012 Complete Series DVDs. They're supposed to look prestige, and so they naturally would, but those are just phenomenal. In conclusion though, I think the 2 best ones of all time have to be Thomas and the Special Letter from the US, as that just purely encapsulates just the feel of classic Thomas. And for the UK, I'm gonna go with Chases, Races and Runaways. I know, I'm so ballsy. Obviously though, the best one of all time is this one, so